Hello, everyone, and welcome back to RHAP. We know scripted TV. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and we are here today to talk about episode 4 of Rings of Power. And who's this with me? It's a stranger, a hermit from the wilderness. Josh Wigler.
Well, I'd prefer to be known by my scripted TV RHAP podcast title, which is Eldest.
Ah,
Eldest.
eldest Josh
I was
Bombadil.
I was here before the first Acorn TV advertisement. I remember when it was just daily House of Cards recaps with Rob Sesternino and Zach Brooks. I've been here since the beginning, Taran.
You've seen it all.
I've seen it all. I've seen all that has come before and all that shall ever be. Very excited to be talking about Tom Bombadil,
Mm.
Grand Elf, wink. Taran, are we
Who's
are
the
we
dark
are we gonna
who
are we gonna Hodor Grand Elf to Gandalf? Is that what's happening? Are we gonna Hodor Grand Elf to Gandalf? Is that what Rings of Power is telling me?
Is that how he gets the name?
Unbelievable. Whoever said this show was unnecessary did not make it to season 2, episode 4, where we're calling him Grand Elf. Love it.
Mm.
Thrilled to be
I
here.
just wanna know who the dark wizard is that you mentored, uh,
Oh, well,
in the
uh,
past.
yeah, he co-hosts the weekend program with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Antonio kind of has like a dark wizard beard look to him, I think.
We must defeat and the unholy alliance of
Hmm.
Antonio and, maybe Rob Sesternino, I don't
I think
know.
that could be. I think that could be. Wow, 4 episodes deep into the Rings of Power. Grace Leeder off on a ring quest of her own. I'm thrilled to be here to join you, Taran. Toss a
Yes.
token.
And I gotta say, I'm just really enjoying Rings of Power. It's
Yeah.
just I mean, I said it before the season started that it's kind of like a vibe show for me, and it's just such a vibe. Like, the vibes are really vibing this season. I have gotten more, like, old school fantasy adventure nostalgia in this show than I have, I think, in maybe any fantasy adaptation.
I'm trying to, I mean, like, accepting films, right? And when I'm thinking about films, I'm thinking about the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Mhm.
I think that that's right. I mean, when Game of Thrones was at its peak, that show was pretty hard to beat. But even then, I feel like Game of Thrones, like in sort of like superhero parlance, maybe Game of Thrones is like Christopher Nolan, and I don't know which version of Batman Lord of the Rings would be. Presumably, what
Mm.
James Gunn might do when James Gunn gets his hands further into the DC universe. But it's like it's brighter, it's poppier, it is more unabashedly adventurous. I think adventurous is probably not a word I would use to describe Westeros.
Exactly.
Hazardous maybe, but not adventurous. And there is, just even with the dangers of Rings of Power, there's something comforting knowing enough of the lore, even if you're not like a Tolkien junkie, which I'm not. I really love the franchise, but I'm not like extremely deep in it. But if you've seen Lord of the Rings, like, Hot Sauron isn't going to win ultimately, right? So, like, ultimately, like, this is going to have like a happier ending. And I think that there's almost something kind of comforting in that, in watching sort of the dark stuff that does crop up here, because that doesn't mean that all of these characters who we are meeting here, certainly the ones who are seemingly show inventions, are going to make it out the other side. So there absolutely are still some stakes. I think this is a hard thing to achieve with prequels. Better Call Saul was really good at this. I think Rings of Power is really good at that. But beyond that, like, we're fighting Barrow Whites, like we're I don't even know what to call like the Swamp of Sorrows monster that ate Isildur, but we're fighting that thing.
Dinner.
I guess we call it dinner. Yeah. Uh-huh. We're having barbecue. There's just, and then Tom freaking Bombadil is here, who is a big deal in the pantheon, and he's maybe not quite as goofy as I expected him to be, but he's still a delight. This show is a delight. I binged season 1 again for the first time watching it since it came out initially ahead of season 2. And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm playing a lot more Dungeons and Dragons these days, but this show scratches an itch that I'm really, really vibing with. And I couldn't agree more. I'm really loving season 2 of Rings of Power so far.
Yeah, it's just and famously, I am not like the deepest in the lore, so this is maybe blasphemous, but like I think that this show has it's made me think about the books
Yeah.
more than the trilogy of movies did. like
Yeah.
it gives me the feeling of that I had when I read the books. I love the movies. I think they're great. I don't think they're bad in any way, but it translates the feeling of like adventure and mystical sort of like beings and nature and like there's so much of that in here that that I've really just it really has been taking me back to my childhood. Like it's
Yeah.
very yeah, I like it.
Yeah. I think it's doing, you know, it's the benefit of this being a TV show is it can take its time. It doesn't, not that the Lord of the Rings movies had much to worry about in terms of runtime, but there's still films. We are at this point getting close to eclipsing the Lord of the Rings trilogy in runtime. I think with the grand total of Rings of Power, got to be getting close at this point. And presumably we've got a lot more time on the clock, and so I think that you can again like sort of like pin it on D&D. Like we've got like more opportunities to like roll initiative and fight a bunch of Barrow-wights. We've got more opportunities to like go on some like side quests with the Harfoots and the Stranger, and that can take its time a little bit more than some of the other storylines. So I think like there's a lot of room to breathe, and when a show is as like visibly expensive as a show like this one, like Bezos putting his Bezos bucks to good use here on Rings of Power. I think like it just looks unbelievable. It has this huge epic scale to it while also still feeling episodic in nature. And I actually do think of it sort of like in the pantheon of great HBO shows, specifically like a Game of Thrones, where you would be in a storyline for a while and then you'd go to a different storyline and you would hop around. And like I'm enjoying the fact that we are like kind of segmented out. Like I'm loving that we are getting more time with Galadriel and Elrond specifically in this episode. Like we did not get the two of them as enough of a pair last season, so now we've got that. Or like Arendir and Isildur I think are like a really good pair this season. That feels like when you would have Tyrion is off with Bronn, or Arya is off with the Hound. Like, so I think like there are those vibes that are here as well. And while there's like a lot of like canonical fidelity that needs to be adhered to for this show, it's just like margins, right? Like it's just like sentences and paragraphs that they have to stay loyal to. So like what did those paragraphs and sentences make the creators of this show feel, and how do they translate that to the screen? So there is like an adventurous quality of freedom in the storytelling of the show that I think is really hitting for me. So like very much same page, and also like maybe like a little bit jilted by the end of House of the Dragon, and like I'm really wanting like something to hit. So as long as this isn't all building to nothing, Taran, I think I'm gonna be saying that season 2 of Rings of Power is greater than season 2 of Hot D.
That which is wild.
Crazy.
But yeah, I mean, that's sort of the thing too. I have seen a little bit of talk about this episode, like, "Oh, we really liked the episode, but we're a little gun shy." Like,
Yeah.
is like, did we go enough places fast enough? But, like, for me, I feel like I don't we're only 4 episodes in, maybe I'll
Yep.
feel differently by the end of the season, but I don't really care about the destination all that much right now. I'm
Sure.
just digging the journey,
We're just
which
doing
is
the walking song, right? We're just wandering
yeah.
around. Yeah.
We're gonna get lost wandering around looking for,
Yeah.
what do they call
The
it?
stars. Yeah.
The thing, but, yes, so
Oh, yeah, whatever the new word for the Shire is.
right,
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun to try and figure out, like, okay, what are you pointing us to? What are you leading us
Yeah.
to? Like, okay, now I vaguely know what the Harfoot storyline destination is. Like, these guys, this is like a Shire origin story. Sign me up. They're gonna have
It
to
seems like
build the
it.
Shire in the UK now. Good luck to you. Good luck to you all. It's gonna be a big endeavor.
And I think a huge part of this, yeah, is this this thing with the Harfoots and the stranger. They're splitting up, and I thought that both of these storylines really improved with the split up. Like I was kind of bored with them just kind of walking around, but coming upon like a new colony of Harfoots or hobbits or I don't know exactly how they define themselves in the place, but
Yeah.
that was fun and like learning more about their history was cool and like, oh, are you with the Dark Wizard? I thought that was fun, and then of course, Bombadil, Tom Bombadil.
Bombadil. Okay, do we have to do like a Bombadil primer? Do we need to like cuz are there people who are just again just like vibing on Rings of Power? It's like, okay, I queued up
Mhm.
my Fire Stick and because I did Uncle Jeff is making sure that I know a new episode of the Rings of Power has dropped. So I'm just watching it. I don't know what else I'm going to do, so sure. And they pop it on and this dude is like talking to not Gandalf. It's totally Gandalf. It's just definitely Gandalf. We're talking to Grand Elf, the
Mm.
stranger, and he's like, "Listen, Sonny boy, I'm eldest, okay? Like, I've been here for a minute. So, like, who is this self-important guy? Why is he such a big deal? Because I think if those people then log online and look at Tolkien Twitter or Tolkien Talk, people are losing their minds at Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, which is weird because again, this might be blasphemous. When I read the books, I was dying at Tom Bombadil. I was
Uh
There
huh.
was too much nonsense and singing and
Oh wait, so
uh
did you read Fellowship first or did you watch the movie first? What was
um
the order? Did you read the books or did you see the movies before you read the
I
books?
actually I saw the
Yeah.
movie first. But I had no idea what I was watching. I was very young at the time. Like
Yeah.
when did the movie um
It's like turn of the millennium.
like, I watched it in theaters, it was 2000. I was 9 years old,
Yeah.
and I was very co that was the first movie I ever saw that didn't have an ending,
Uh-huh.
um,
How did that
and I
feel?
was like, "Wait, what ha why did it stop?" And he was
Yeah.
like, "'Cause my dad was like, "There's more movies that are gonna come," and I was like, "But that I thought that was the movie."
They made it up to you with the third movie having like 10 endings.
Yeah.
So they delivered
But,
on the
yes,
back
I
end.
think I ended up reading the books before the movies ended,
Okay. But then you would be reading
but
the
yeah.
book and like, what's this jolly fellow doing here? Because you're like very early on in Fellowship of the Ring, the book, the boys leave the Shire. They've got their marching orders. Find the Strider, find Vigo Morts, and they're on their way to do it. And they side quest right into the wide open arms of this strange singing jolly man, Tom Bombadil. And they're like hanging out with this dude for like 3, 4 chapters, something like that. And then he disappears and he's never like in it again. And he's certainly not in the movies. And he's
Yep.
certainly not even in the Hobbits. And now here he is in the Rings of Power. And maybe folks need to know what's up. And if you need to know what's up, when he says eldest, I think he means it, Taran. I think this is the OG Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, just I I would say like a classic fantasy archetype, but I think he may be
The
the archetype.
archetypical, yeah. He
Like,
pioneered it.
he's the eldest of the fantasy archetype in this role.
Yeah,
I'm
he's
sure there's like mythical stuff that you could probably point to, but I mean, Tolkien is kind of the grandfather of
I think so.
the
Yeah, yeah.
fantasy genre, and he really came up with a lot of the tropes. And Tom Bombadil is definitely one of those tropes. One that I think has kind of gone by the wayside. It is a little bit of a feature of its time. The like kind of hermit in the woods that sort of is a representation almost of nature in a way, and is very old and wise, and maybe gives some gifts, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is, and Tom Bombadil loves to sing as well.
Loves to sing, not singing nearly enough to my liking here. He's like sort of like he's like a little too shy. There's like what's the Lonely Island song, Shy Rodney? Like he's in the back, no one can hear him. He's just like sort of like quietly going, oh, Tom Bombadil, I'm singing a song over here. And the stranger's like, what did you
I
say? It's nothing. Just farming.
Yeah,
Just farming
as
over here.
as you mentioned earlier, I was very much expecting like a jolly Santa, like just singing along all the time.
Yeah, in the book, in Fellowship of the Ring, and Tom Bombadil predates Fellowship of the Ring. He was the subject of a poem that J.R.R. Tolkien wrote, and then my understanding is like when people asked him subsequently, like, so what's this? What's the origin of this dude in Fellowship of the Ring? And like Tolkien's basically like he was always there. It's like, oh, okay, whoa, all right, okay, say no more. But when you encounter him in Fellowship of the Ring, at least it's been a minute since I've read it, but my memory of it is like, okay, this guy is on one. He is just sort of
Yeah.
like bounding around, singing songs. I've got a couple of his songs here. One of his songs goes, he teaches the hobbits what to sing if they get into trouble. He teaches them this song. Ho Tom Bombadil, Bombadilio, by water, wood, and hill, by the reed and willow, by fire, sun, and moon, hearken now and hear us. Come, Tom Bombadil, for our need is near us. I love that his songs almost always just like have him saying his own name. He's like the Little John of Middle Earth. He's like, okay, Tom Bombadil, Bombadilio. I feel like we
Yeah.
need to be bringing Bombadilio back in a bigger way.
There's some like illustrations that it have. I don't know how I saw them as a kid, but
Yeah,
they've always been like my image of Tom Bombadil.
yeah. For the
Like
video
this one, I
version, we've
think in
got him pulled up right
particular,
now. Oh yeah,
if you're watching the video version, like this is what I think of when I think of Tom Bombadil.
Taran, you need to start saving these images because, like, very soon, like the terrific Rory Kinnear, famous for his relationship with pigs, is going to be like dominating the image search for
Mhm.
Tom Bombadil in the future. And what a tragedy it will be to erase like all of the great Tom Bombadil art, where he does just look like he looks like Middle Earth Santa Claus in blue and yellow. He's
Mhm.
got like blue shirt, blue hat, famously has like incredible yellow shoes, which I don't think have quite popped on the screen yet. Um, and he's like the anti Sauron, basically in Fellowship of the Ring. Like the lads are like, oh well, we've got this ring, and it seems to be like a really bad problem. And Mr. Bombadilio is like, hey, let me check that out though. And he like looks at it and he like slips it on. He's like, this is a pretty cool piece of jewelry. He's like looking at it, and everyone's like, are you all right? He's like, yeah, I feel totally chill and fine. He's like not being like he's not invisible. He doesn't seem like greedy or mad or
Mhm.
anything. He's just like, yeah, it's a ring. And they're
Tom
like, well,
Bombadil.
what do you think of it? He's like, it's not that big of a deal. And so like he's like Sauron wants the ring above all else, and like Bombadil like doesn't care. Just isn't going to engage it. Same tired story. Next question is Tom
Mm.
Bombadil. So I don't know what he's going to be doing here narratively, but it is very exciting to see him. I hope that he starts to get a little weirder. I would like him to get
Yeah.
just a little bit weirder, but I'm thrilled to have him in the story.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, like, am I upset that he is not more like what I imagined? Because, like I said, it wasn't like I loved his part in the book because it felt very long and lots of singing, and I always skipped over the singing. So,
Oh yeah, like just generally, like when you would encounter like big passages of song in these books,
I th I don't know
you'd be
what I
like, "Oh,
would do
sweet, 3 pages,
now.
yes,
I mean,
yeah,
now I listen to audiobooks, so, like, I'd probably just listen to the singing, but, like,
yeah."
when I read these books as a kid, I would start reading the song and I'd just be like, nah, and I'd skip right over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but
Hey,
but I
come
do.
dairy doll, hop along, my hearties. Hobbits, ponies all, we are fond of parties. Now let the fun begin. Let us sing together. Tom Bombadil just loves a song. I need him to sing a little bit more. Like even if it risks pushing us into like deep cheese, like I think we could stand to be a little cheesier. We did like a whole music number for the walking song. We did like walking song encore in the first couple of episodes here. Like
Mhm.
we could bust out a real Bombadil music number if we wanted to.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, like, I can understand why they're going a bit more muted because I think it is certainly a fine line. And I think that that is what they've been trying to do with the series, where that we are evoking that feeling of old school fantasy, but not in a goofy way.
Yep.
And so I agree. I think there's a little more room to play. I was also expecting some more active singing, but we'll see. We'll see if we get any more from that.
Yeah.
But yes, so he is going to help teach probably Gandalf
Probably Gandalf,
about
right?
some things. Okay, I did have a brief thought in this episode when he was talking about the Dark Wizard because I think people assumed that it was going to be Saruman, but like it
Hmm.
feels like that can't be Saruman.
Unless they
Um,
do like a Men in Black mind wipe or something.
yeah. Um, until Sauron, to my understanding.
Yeah.
He was like turned by Sauron, and Gandalf was like buds with Saruman for a while. So you could maybe say like, oh, there's like a redemption arc only for him then to turn again, but that's kind of weird.
Yes.
Um, I think what I've read is that there are some other theories that this could be like a blue wizard of sorts, or something along those lines. But I don't. It doesn't seem like this should be Saruman that they're talking about.
Sure, I
Um,
agree with that.
which then made me think, and I'm sure I'm wrong because other people would have guessed this if it was true. It made me think for a second, what if probably Gandalf is actually Saruman?
Mm.
And this is the
Mm.
origin story of Saruman. And that's the tragedy of this show is that good old Saruman eventually we know gets turned.
Gosh, that's gonna be real sad, if that's the case, because like Saruman's whole deal, even though they didn't show it in the movies, is like at the end of the books, my guy just like rocks the Shire and just destroys the Shire. So is not a Gandalf actually Saruman like learning the ways of the Harfoots just to like totally eviscerate them later on? That would be a darker turn than
It's very
Halbrand
dark.
turning to Sauron. Yeah, that would be rough. That would be
I just had the
brutal.
thought, and I'm sure I'm wrong. But it made me think. But yes, this is probably Gandalf.
I just feel like if we're doing the whole like, oh well, eventually you'll find your name.
Yeah.
Like this is like
And the staff, I mean, they're very clearly pointing at it.
so at a certain like I know that he doesn't show up yet. That's what they say. He's like, oh, but Gandalf wasn't here until the third age. To which I say, like, relax. It's a television show. Let him be Gandalf. Let my guy be Gandalf. Let my strange man stop being called, "Hey, stranger." Like when Nori is talking to her friend, is like, "Oh, where'd the stranger go?" Like that doesn't feel right. Like
Mhm.
he needs a name, and we need it quick. I cannot handle 5 seasons of them like turning this into a big long story arc of you'll find your name. Don't worry, Grand Elf. Just Hodor it faster. Get us to Gandalf. But his fate is leading him towards the Dark Wizard and Sauron. And like when if that's what Bombadil says to him, like you have to meet both. That like the dark interpretation of that could be like because you're gonna become the Dark Wizard and Sauron's gonna be your guy. I hope that's not what's happening, but there's track for it if that's the way they want to go.
Yeah. Well, there's also the Harfoot's journey. They run into nobody.
Who?
Nobody.
Nobody?
Nobody.
Bob Odenkirk?
Yeah, nobody too.
Yeah.
Um, And this was very funny to me, where they walk through two rocks, and this show looks amazing.
Yes.
Great budget. Uh, couldn't have more clearly just been two rocks that they then cut to a cave system. And,
Yeah.
like, they have clearly, like, a little canyon in the wide shot, but, like, they just walked through two
They
rocks.
walked through two rocks. They're like,
But
maybe they
they
were just like
find
tired. They're like, we've got
yeah.
a lot of sweeping vistas here.
Like, this is like, I probably did this shot when I was a kid and I was filming, like, a video for
Yeah.
school.
Yes. Totally. Listen, if it ain't broke, if it ain't broke.
But they come upon a settlement of, Hobbit Harfoot, people,
Yeah.
and, I thought this scene where they discover sort of the origins of the wandering Harfoots, was very well done.
So yeah, so what exactly is the deal that I think they're called the Stoors.
The Stoors.
The
Okay.
Stoors. So it's the Stoors and the Harfoots and the late leader of the Harfoots whose name I'm Sardoc, I believe, who is no more, was tight with the leader of the Stoors, but then was like, I don't know, I kind of want to check out some other spots, and so like they broke off, and they've all been searching for, gosh, I forget the name of this, but it's like it starts with an S, and it's clearly the Shire.
Yeah, like, the Shire is the Shire.
The
Uh,
Shire. Yeah. Yeah, Shire. And so they're searching for that. And the Queen of the Stoors was very sad to hear, oh, y'all didn't settle anywhere, huh?
mhm.
What a bummer.
I mean, what a, interesting backstory. We learned so much about their culture, the Harfoot culture last season, and how they're always wandering, and being left behind is a big deal, and like they would never settle. Like that is a core tenet of their culture. And this is such a cool thing that you can do in fantasy, which is like, yeah, that is the antithesis of the mission you started with.
Right.
You were searching for a home, and like what that does to a person who existed in that culture, and what it means for their family and how they grew up. It's such a cool little twist on, I think, the Harfoots.
So where do we think that this ultimately is going now that we've expanded the Harfoot lore, and we are like inching closer to like merging the tribes, and the merged tribe is called hobbits. Is Nori, sort of like the fabled one, like the promised one who is supposed to unite these tribes, do you think? Or how is this going to shake out? Or are the Stoors going to be like closer to the tailies, important in season 2 and completely abandoned by season 3?
I mean, I think nobody will be an addition to the roster to some degree.
Wow, that's unfortunate. That is like the tailies. Nobody really mattered.
Yeah. But I mean, I think this matters. I think that, like, so my assumption would be, Tom Bombadil talks about how this place used to be green and nice and cool.
Yeah.
And a big part of what probably Gandalf is trying to do with his powers is like figure out how to make things luscious. Um,
Lascious.
can they re-green this area? And
Yeah.
then
Can
this
they
is
reverse the climate crisis
yes.
of the vaguely desert Shire territory?
Exactly, and then this becomes perhaps a territory for the hobbits to, inhabit, or, something along those lines.
Interesting. I think it might be useful for the budget of the show, which is already stratospheric, to like, instead of having to build a full Shire village, go the full other way and just like wasteland, wasteland, and then folks can use their imagination by the end of the show. This is where the Shire ought to be, because in Fellowship, Bombadil's spot is not far away from the Shire.
Mhm.
And so like either where he is now, he's like nomadic, which would not make sense, right? Like this is 1,000 years off or something like that. So he's got time to move, certainly. Or like, do we not need to like put the Shire closer to Bombadil, or do we not need to put Bombadil closer to the Shire? Is the Shire closer to Bombadil? Like, is this going to be basically that territory? That would make sense to me, which is also why I would really love if the stranger ultimately is Gandalf. I not that I like, not that I need any sort of explanation for why Gandalf is so fond of hobbits, but it would be sweet, right? And it would be like, I think like his story not directly colliding with Galadriel or Sauron, or specifically probably with like the Sauron battle. He could cross paths with Galadriel, Elrond, and whatever, and still be mostly kept out of like the history of that direct fight. If his whole thing is like, you got to confront the Dark Wizard, you got to confront Sauron himself. In doing that, your way towards that is by like supporting and elevating the hobbits so that one day they can deliver like the final death blow to Sauron. That would work for me. So I think that's what I'm rooting for narratively, even if it would keep him away from some of the other characters on the show. I think I'm actually really, I didn't love the Harfoots in season one, but I think I was being like my experience of that was like not dissimilar to like the experience I think we both had of reading like the songs and the Bombadil chapters when we were younger. And like now I kind of want that joy. And so re-experiencing season one and colliding straight into season two, like I'm enjoying what they're doing with the Harfoots. And I think like keeping the stranger here, and his job is to boost the Harfoots and turn them into hobbits, and then turn that one hobbit into the bravest little hobbit of them all. I think could be a good path.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it would be very fun. Okay, so we also had another very good plot line, which was we guessed correctly. The sound effects are very such a signature sound for the Ents.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Last episode when Theo was taken away, and we were like, sounds like the Ents.
Yeah.
And turns out it was. And what again, just I was a little bit like, are we really doing rehashing all the best hits of Lord of the Rings last
Right.
episode? But like this hit for me. This worked.
What was confusing to me though was that there were other sentient trees in this episode that I don't think were Ents. Like I don't think like the Bombadil tree is an
Mr.
Ent,
Ironwood.
Mr. Ironwood.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's Taran, mea culpa. That's on me. Not all trees are the same.
Yeah,
Uh,
don't that's pretty
that's pretty
speciesist.
botanist of me. I don't think that's right. So I was a little confused at first. I was like, because at first I was like, ooh, an ent, as like this tree is swallowing up Grandelf.
Mm.
And then like there are actual ents later on. And so either like these are not both ents, or Bombadil's tree is like a really old ent who's like, I don't talk anymore. I just grab.
My my
I just.
my
I just.
face
I just
has
grab and
just
go.
been sanded away.
Or it's just like a very introverted ent, and it's just like, I don't want to talk about it. And it just like grabs you. Like my face is inside. I don't want to show you any of that. But the ents are great. Ents are such a fun. Like I'm a sucker for a sentient tree. I love a sentient tree, Taran. That's one of
Mm.
my toxic traits. I think like an anthropomorphized tree creature is a delight. And the Ents are sort of right at the very top of the list of that kind of brand. Um, are they going to be, of further importance, or is this really more about like answering for the crime of cutting a tree down back in season one? I don't know. Do you think they're here to stay, or is this just like, I wouldn't even know if I would call it fan service necessarily? Like it's totally within the rights of the canon to like bring Ents here. They exist
Mhm.
on Middle Earth.
Yeah, I think it was just like a very poignant kind of moment, a little adventure that like is meaningful, emotional, and sets some of these characters off in different directions. Where now, uh, cool elf guy
Aaron, dear,
is
yeah.
Aaron Deere, thank you. Uh, is going to kind of go off like he has debts to keep, he has promises to keep, and he has to make up for that moment in season one where he was forced to cut down a tree.
Yeah.
And that was like a very intense thing for him. And the fact that he has to answer for it and go off and go on to a new quest now because of this, like it's cool that this is going to like, an action is going to follow this story. It meant something. It seems to have changed Theo as well, for hopefully the better. And it was also just like a fun little journey to take, and a good way to introduce, in my opinion, the Ents back into the story for at least this portion. Where
Yeah.
I think in the Lord of the Rings, the movies at least, they were. I mean, they were like they talked about like the tragedy of the trees being cut down and stuff, but it was like I remember the Ents as like they were fun. Like, "Oh, we love the Ents," Merry
Yeah.
and Pippin are, like, hanging out, make cracking jokes with the Ents.
Yeah.
Um, but, like, this was, like, tragic. This was you could feel their pain, in a really visceral way, and I thought that that was really, really impactful.
Yeah, I think like good subversive storytelling. I think that's something that the Rings of Power does really well with, is taking the familiar, even if you are just somebody who watched the movies, and like that is still my predominant experience with the franchise, and like finding ways to like sort of like weaponize your memory or your attachments to the Lord of the Rings. Like I think that that's one of the ways that they were able to like gotcha on so many people with Halbrand, for instance, that like his story in season one seemed like he's the Aragorn type, right? Like he's like the grungy, quiet boy who doesn't want to be bothered, but is secretly a king of men, but is actually something completely different. And I think here, like you think of an Ent and you think of like John Reese Davies moonlighting, because he's already got his day job as Gimli, and by night he's a giant tree carrying Billy Boyd and Dominic Monaghan to other giant talking trees. And like they have dramatic weight in Two Towers and beyond. But they are like when you think of the Ents, you think of like sort of like that like Zootopia sloth who like takes forever to respond, and for them to be like, we're still talking about it. Like there's like lots of
Mhm.
really great slow tree humor in Two Towers, and I feel like that was not the vibe here. And I think like a really wise choice of give us what we want, but not the way we think we want it. Give it to us a little bit different. And I think also like if the Ents, I don't know enough about like the Second Age to like sort of know other than like the big broad strokes of like the prologue from Fellowship, the film, to know exactly where all of this is going and where all of these characters are going. So I can't recall if the Ents have a big role to play in like the big, climax to come. But if they do, the show just did enough work that if they never appear again until like they're really needed, they are canonically firmly established. So well done. Good economic storytelling.
Mhm. I agree. Um, and I'm still like, I don't know what I feel like the human storyline with Arondir there was not my favorite plot of season one. Especially with like Theo just being an angsty teen,
Yeah.
which is never very fun.
No.
But this is really working for me. Like Arondir is just so elf-like. I really loved because I feel like in the dialogue, I've pointed this out before. The dialogue has at times been very formulaic for me, when it's not poetic. When it's
Yeah.
poetic, it's fun. When it's like, there are plenty of examples, but like, when it's not, it's fine. It's passable. But like, there was something I was kind of expecting, which is like, okay, Theo is missing. He went off with Isildur to rescue his horse. He's just a kid. You just got him captured. Like you're a newcomer here.
Right.
you'd normally be like, "What were you thinking?" But Arondir's like, "Don't blame yourself, Isildur." And just like that little moment to me was like, yes, like that is more true to this character, right? He is a lot more level-headed than that to just like blame Isildur for this, and like we need to move forward and figure out how to find Theo. And I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. So to like bring it back to the things that I do and do not recall from the prologue of Fellowship. Uh
Mhm,
Certainly recall what happens with Isildur.
mhm.
And uh I really love the Isildur of Rings of Power because he's like, what like you're a little innocent guy. Like you're just like trying to do the right thing. He's just out here like so many of us just trying to make daddy love me. Like that's all he's out here trying to do. And he gets left behind and he finds this wild woman, this Adar disciple, and he's like, we're not gonna hurt you, like, we're
He finds
fine."
his Ygritte.
Yeah, but like this isn't gonna end well for him, and I don't like that. That bums me out so much. But I am wondering, like, are they going to do like is there going to be some kind of storyline here that like they need to lay the groundwork for it to make sense that Isildur is not going to be able to get like all the way on board by the end, or like is he going to be like, is it not just like the ring and like sort of like that overwhelming moment of I could have so much power? Are they going to try and like lay track for a darker path for Isildur, like via this character, this love interest whose name is escaping me right now? Is it I think is it Estrid? I think is her name,
Sounds right.
uh, and is she going to be like the Black Widow? Like and like that's gonna be a little tropey and annoying. Um,
Mm.
but as a duo, I really am enjoying Arondir and Isildur, and I think like it's laying good track for eventually that character is going to have if not like a strong relationship, then certainly like a functioning work relationship with Elrond. So I think like familiarizing him with the elves right now, that's a good story choice for sure. I'm wondering if that's a wrap on Theo. Didn't it kind of feel like maybe we're like saying bye to Theo, or is Theo about to lead his own storyline here?
Um, it could be. I think like I wouldn't be totally shocked if I never saw Theo again because this feels like it could be a place where it ends. But
It kind of feels
I
like, kid, you're growing fast. We gotta quiet quit you out of the show.
well, especially with like his mom,
Is
I'm sure
gone.
they
Yeah.
originally intended her to be in the storyline, and so without her there, they must have had to change things.
Yeah.
But I feel like he'll be back in some
Yeah.
capacity,
Yeah.
whether it's immediately or later. I'm sure we'll be seeing Theo
Take some time.
at some point. We still have to see his ears at some point as well.
Oh
So,
gosh, I
um,
know. What a mystery. What a mystery. This is why I'm out on the bowl cut, Taran. The bowl
mm,
cut hides too much. There's
you need to
important
be able to see
information.
ears.
We need to be
Yeah.
able to see your ears.
I mean, Josh, I'm seeing headphones right now.
I know. Well, this is hard as a podcaster. This is the tell which podcasters are elves and which podcasters are not.
Mm,
uh, there is a common adage, again, as I say, eldest amongst us from the very beginning of podcasting time. Never trust a podcaster who wears headphones.
yeah, it's a good thing to
Good
say.
protocol. Good
Good
protocol.
idea. Um, but yes, I'm liking Isildur in the show. Like from my perspective, I think that like it makes a lot of sense to just build him up in a very straightforward, heroic way because
Yeah.
I think that his story is better as a hero than as somebody who like has too many overt flaws that are clearly exploitable because he is somebody that very clearly means really well.
Yeah.
And I like the little moments that they're throwing in here where he does clearly blame himself for what happened to
Yes.
Theo because of the story he told about his mom. And then, more importantly, when he gets sucked into what we thought was quicksand but turned out to be dinner, uh, he is like, "Don't help me. Don't help me. I'm fine. I can
Yeah.
do this myself." Because of what happened when his mother tried to save him from drowning. Like he's clearly having a traumatic flashback from that. And so we're being reminded of this notion that like Isildur, he does not want to like fail people. He does not want people to help him and then fail them. He wants to be able to help others
Yes.
himself.
Yes.
And I think that motivation alone is enough for where he goes as a character. But yes, then we also get the stuff with probably Estrid as her name, where man, that was I think they went a little too quick with the like
A reveal.
you like, okay, you are in handcuffs. I'll take off your handcuffs. Now we kiss. Nope, sword.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. Now you've been hit by the tree. Now
Yeah.
we kiss. Oh, like
I think yes. I don't want to judge like the pace of how quickly people get together, but for me personally, I always waited until my second imprisonment
mhm.
before we kissed. That was always the rule. In
I think this could have stuck to subtext.
Yeah,
Like clearly there was romantic interest between them. I don't think we needed to see it overtly, especially because it honestly feels a little icky the fact that she was in handcuffs a second ago.
yeah, yeah. It was weird. It was weird. Didn't love it. Uh, Curious to see where that's all gonna take us next.
Mhm.
Um, What did you think of what was going on in Elrond and Galadriel's side of the show this week? Did you like the
I
Barrow White fight?
I kind of okay. I do still have a big issue with the show so far, and it still just might be a me thing, but it's so dark.
Yeah,
I'm really having trouble. I could barely see the Ents. I had trouble seeing what was happening in this
the
fight.
nighttime stuff specifically is
Yeah.
dark. I mean, like mercifully, there's so much that is just like rendered in broad daylight. So I think
Any
like you can't level like the same severity of the critique that you could at like
Mhm.
Hot D, for instance.
Yes.
But it's
Anytime they
not
go to
unfair. It's not
daylight,
unfair.
I'm, like, relieved and blown away because
Like
it
rub your
looks amazing.
eyes. Yeah.
It's like, "Oh, thank God, this is beautiful." And then when they go to night, I'm like, "What's happening?" Uh,
Has anyone got a
and
flashlight?
I'm sure part of that is cost saving. There's a lot
Yes.
of CG work being done, I think, being obscured by the darkness, that would probably not look as good if it were brighter, but, man, I would love to just have a little more brightness in there so I could see a little bit more of what's happening. But I did like this plotline, and I do again, I thought that the character work here was good between, Galadriel and Elrond, where she is like the bridge is down. And it's like, what are our two options? Well, we can add 3 weeks to our journey, or we
Uh-huh.
can go the other way. And it's like, well, clearly, if Sauron pulled this bridge down, he's not gonna expect you to take 3 weeks. You're gonna go the other way. He's
Right.
trapping you into doing that. But then because Galadriel saw something with her ring, she has like the right of it, and Elrond seems to have the wrong of it because of his over distrust of anything that comes from the ring, which you could understand given how like dramatic the falling out was between them as they really were like screwing him over when he was trying to get rid of the rings.
Yeah.
And so you have this conflict of back and forth where I was like, oh, I see where you're coming from, Elrond, but I don't know if you're like now you're the one falling into the trap a little bit.
It is hard for me to find too much fault in the guy whose philosophy is like Sauron bad. You
Yeah.
know? Like Sauron bad. And so like I don't know that I want to use Sauron's bad rings, like, ooh, cool. They're powerful. You can heal that guy's little tummy with your little diamond. Cool. That's
That was part of my thing was like, oh man,
how did
the
that work?
bridge is out.
Yeah.
Guess we have to take 3 weeks or fight through zombies to make it
Yeah,
there.
can't we just like
Or
Green Lantern the bridge up?
exactly!
Yeah.
This the whole point is that these are like the all-powerful you can't make a bridge?
Yeah, Galadriel should have tried. I think listen, if your whole thing right now is you want to build trust back with Elrond and show Elrond like rings could be cool, then I think like use it or lose it, sister. Like try. Like just like point it at, like you just like shake it out, like ah. It's like, what are you doing? It's like trying to make a bridge. It's like, what do you mean? Like, I don't know. I think maybe it's worth a shot. Just try.
Yeah.
Like she just won't even do that. But then poor Derek over here gets a little tummy ache.
Yeah.
And she's like, I got you. I'll just
I was because I
fix that
was
right up.
feeling that way. I was feeling like, what is with these rings if all they're doing is showing us flashes of things?
Yeah,
And also I get it, like the letting the elves stay there longer, whatever. But like,
certainly.
I do think they helped by showing the healing powers. I was like, okay, okay, it's doing something.
Totally great. Yeah, happy. And like, the just make a bridge is like what like you're watching the wrong shows, guys. Like you're focusing on the wrong things. But I did have the same thought of like, oh, this could have been a cool moment where she's like, just like, like Yoda lifting the X-Wing out. Like, could we do something there? That could be dope. But I think I mean like I think that the certainly like the I really like the tension between Elrond and Galadriel, and I like how they're because I think that Elrond is in season 1 specifically like what a sweet little guy, right? Like what a sweet boy. All he wants is like I want to do right by my friend. I don't know that I want to exploit my friend. I didn't know that I hurt his feelings so bad. Like he's a decent survivor player, but he would have a hard time like making like the really hard cuts, I
Mm,
think. And that's like Elrond, but that ain't Hugo Weaving. Hugo Weaving Elrond is like a jaded piece of work. And
mhm,
so I think the show is doing a good job of like gussying him up a little bit and like getting him a little dirtier and him having to leave Galadriel in this moment, things like that. So I like what they're doing with him. And now I'm curious to see as we leave the episode, Galadriel with Adar, because I feel like they didn't get nearly enough time together in season 1. It was really just like they had them and then Mordored. So they had to just like, okay, well, that's it. So what's it going to be like with the shoe on the other foot, and especially the two of them kind of having the common enemy in Sauron? Like Adar like tried to kill this dude. He sort of seems to have like some feeling of like, but did I actually? Because then he like exploded in light and his body wasn't there, and maybe he turned into some sort of goo sludge for a millennia. Uh, she has some big information that she can drop to him where if he's going to be like, yeah, I saw your stupid little handsome human boyfriend, I sent him on
mhm.
his way, and she's going to be like, well, that ain't my stupid handsome little boyfriend, that's the Dark Lord. And Adar's going to be like, what? So I think like are we veering into some like enemy of my enemy is my friend territory? I think it'd be interesting, especially with like Dark Galadriel. Like that has kind of been her whole thing since the jump of the show.
Mhm. I agree. I think that, like, for me, how we got here did feel a little clumsy. Like, okay, so we couldn't get messages. Sauron got there. Then we had to send a party, but then the bridge was down, so we had to go over
Mm-hmm.
here. But then we ran into the army, and so then we have to go back. But she's gonna stay with the
Have to go back
army, but without the ring. It was just like, okay, we're just putting people in place at this
Yeah,
point, and
yeah,
we're shifting things around a little bit. But like, it's fine. They're getting to where they need to be for the story. And I also like I did a little bit eye roll at like she's fighting off the orcs, and then of course, oh, here's Adar.
yeah,
He's also around. He just happened to be in the area. And oh, of course, he has to be the one to take Galadriel down and be right there in
for
that
sure.
exact moment. And I get it, but like,
I think that the if I have a like I don't even know if it's like a major critique, but like by and large, really loving the season and loving the show. I think the endings of the episodes are maybe a little weak. where it's like, okay, Galadriel's been taken.
Yeah.
Oh no, better tune in next week to see how that resolves. It's like, what we could end on, like, we don't have to end on like a forced cliffhanger. We could
Mhm.
end on we could end on a poignant montage. I promise I'll watch next week. You don't have to just try and hook me in. I'll
Oh,
come
man,
back.
give me a poignant montage any day.
Give me a
That's
poignant montage.
yeah,
We can end on a poignant montage. We could do
like,
that.
Galadriel fighting off orcs, Elrond looking at the ring, Gandalf listening to Tom Bombadil,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, he's got his headphones on and he's just like bopping to Bombadilio. Like,
Yeah.
that's fine. Give me that. I'm okay. I don't need like the cliffhanger. Like, Galadriel is gonna be fine. It's gonna be
Mhm,
fine. So I think the endings are a little weak, but I'm interested to see what those two characters are like together. I'm interested to see Elrond with a ring, and
mhm.
what that might do with him. I think could be fun.
Yeah, he says, "She didn't do that for us. She did it to save the ring."
Yeah,
It was
but
a
I
little
think
mean.
it is a little mean. Like, like you may never see your friend again. Like, that's how you
Yeah.
want it to be.
But you
Like,
can think it, you didn't need to say it.
you could like that is definitely like that's a fine thought to have. Express that to someone you trust privately, but not the whole company. And also,
Yeah.
like, live with the thought internally a little while before, like, that's your friend from childhood.
Mhm.
That's like your kindergarten bestie. Uh, just think about it a little harder. Uh, but I think good writing to like that's the way to give the ring to Elrond. And we
Mhm.
know this ring isn't just like gonna like get like jettisoned into the woods, or at least I assume it's not just gonna get jettisoned into the woods. So now we get to play a little bit with like is kind of tempting. Is sort of an interesting thing to put into Elrond's storyline right now.
I will say she was a bit "I told you so-y"
Sure. Yeah.
after one of the elves died, and she's like, "I know you think these rings are evil, but what if they're not?"
Yeah.
Great comforting after he just
Yeah.
got one of you killed. Thank you.
Yeah. One archer, two swordsmen. Is that enough? Did we want to like diversify the ranks at all? Not that you and I are elf military experts.
Yeah, I don't really understand this. Again, it's a little clumsy to me, this idea that, like, Sauron might be making more rings with Celebrimbor or whatever,
Yeah.
Celebrimbor. This is
The last time I scared a Brimbor, I don't want to talk about it on a podcast. It was pretty
we
messed
like
up.
this is incredibly dangerous. Who knows what he's doing? We need to get word to him. No word is getting through. We need to like get something happening. Let's send 5 people with no horses.
Yeah, they could have. Could you have spared a couple of horses? Like, or like, okay, like I remember Legolas. He was like a tireless guy. He could run for a long time. So I
Mhm.
understand it, elves. You're triathletes. Great. This is not the time to show off. This is horse time. This is the time for not slow horses on a different streamer,
Mm.
fast horses. Get on your horses. You're running swiftly out of time to hit up your friend Celebrimbor and
Mhm.
stop him from making more of these things. Get on a horse. Get off your high horse and get on a high horse. Go
Would be
running.
a good idea. I don't know.
And like, listen, podcasting is sedentary business. So here we are being like, go run, very rich. I can see the YouTube comments already. I see that. But,
Yeah.
you know,
I think one of the strengths of the
do as we
episode too
say.
for me was that we didn't go to the coup place.
Yeah. The
Um
coup place. Yeah. Numenor.
Numenor.
People are really mad that we're not doing enough Numenor. I is my understanding.
Oh, really? I
The
listen,
fandom wants
I'm
more of
fine.
Numenor. I
I'm
think I'm
fine with
also
Numenor.
okay. I think I'm
Yeah.
okay. Like, we'll get to Numenor when we need to get to Numenor. There's a lot going on.
Mhm.
I don't need. I'm not like that invested. And also like, don't feel like you need to you don't need to be out here white knighting for Numenor. Okay, Numenor can take care of itself. The sea is always right. And if Numenor doesn't want to be a C plot, but instead a D or E plot right now, they've got their reasons. They've got their
Mm,
reasons.
yeah.
I
All
was a
right.
little bit because I'm very into I'm really into Sauron.
Yes.
I'm
I did miss Sauron a bit.
I'm really into Sauron, and I don't know, like, is my voice changing? Am I getting meaner as I say it?
Would you want him to be your handsome boyfriend?
I wouldn't be mad.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be mad at it. Anatar. Uh, I love Anatar. I think Charlie Vickers is eating on this show. And so like, as Sludge, he's eating people and rats and things, but as an actor, he's eating scenery. And if you want to give him a week to charge back up, sure. If we go a second week, no Sauron sightings, I'll start to be a little upset. This episode was so good that I didn't mind, but like I think that
Yeah.
the like season two's ability to now be like very openly Sauron, because rewatching season one and knowing for sure, like I had my suspicions watching season one, but I think like now, like knowing that's who that character is, you rewatch that, and while like it absolutely makes sense and totally lines up, like the music cues are triumphant with him, and like in his like moments of privacy, like there's still sort of this heroic bent to the atmosphere of the show. So like that's kind of twisted in its own way, but it's a totally different thing when like now you are like openly invited to be in on it. And so I think like turning that character, who was just a big old stinking eye in the sky for the OG trilogy, into like hot Sauron, so great to follow that character around. So I missed him this week. I did.
Yeah, I do. I can see why it would make sense to give him a break because, like, what else is he doing there right now? You
Yeah.
know, like, oh, we're making more rings. Like, yeah, we know they're making rings, right? I think
Yeah.
it probably makes sense to reintroduce him now that we know that the Orc host under Adar is heading there. That like we'll probably get some Galadriel scenes with Adar. They'll probably arrive, and it'll be like he'll be reintroduced once again.
And I do think, especially with like these are 8 episode seasons, we are halfway through season two of Rings of Power already. That like you keep them away for an episode, even 2 episodes, and by the time you got back to them, those dwarf rings could be made, and
Yeah,
so like
exactly.
that moves the narrative along nicely, and we didn't have to like spend unnecessary time with him, and like it also could potentially serve as like an oh shit, they're further along than I thought kind of
Yeah,
thing.
like
So
it could be next episode. They're like giving the rings to the dwarves, and word is here that the orc host is coming. And like you got more stuff to do. Yeah.
yeah, 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 for sure.
All right. Anything else, Josh,
I
about
really, I
episode four?
really, I really like this show a lot. I'm very pleased you're enjoying it as well. I think especially with fantasy, which is a really beloved genre of yours. Like
Mhm.
you have high standards. You have high standards. So like Rings of Power is meeting them. That's I think a really strong endorsement of the show. So I'm very happy to hear that you're enjoying it as much as you are.
I am also happy to be enjoying
Yeah,
it.
it's
You
great.
know, it's a tough road out there for fantasy
It can
sometimes.
be. It certainly
Um,
can.
but
If you're gonna
yes,
throw a
it's
$500,000 or a $500 million at like your show, it better be at least this good. So
mhm.
like I'm glad it's money well spent. I'm really enjoying Rings of Power right now. I think that this is one of my favorite shows on TV at the moment.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is what we have for you then for episode 4 of Rings of Power. We'll be back next week. I believe Grace will be back.
I think Grace will be back for Rings of Power, but will still be in a bit of a tiff.
Mm,
Come the Tastemakers next week. So I'm gonna swing in for Grace on the Tastemakers next week with you, Taran.
yes.
Who knows what we're gonna talk about? Lots of TV happening right now. We got to
There's an
continue
update
the.
on George
I
Martin.
was just gonna say, there's an update. I hope that our update doesn't get pulled by the time we deliver the update. Yikes. So I think you and I are going to have more fantasy talk ahead of us. I have a lot of thoughts about what George is doing, aka stop. Stop, man. What are you doing? This is like, don't like Galadriel just sacrifice. Like, don't say like she's not even really my good friend anymore. Like, stop. Inside thoughts, George. We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it. All right. Well, stay tuned for that on the Tastemakers this week. Come back next week for episode 5 coverage of Rings of Power. Anything else to plug, Josh?
No, just everything we've got going on here on We Know Scripted TV. It's a blast. We've got a lot coming up. Marvel is starting to rev back online. You might be able to hear a couple of thoughts on the new Marvel show, Agatha All Along, in the not terribly distant future. Weekend program is going strong. Antonio and I this week are talking about Slow Horses, the season 4 premiere of Slow Horses. So check that out on the weekend program and just make sure you're subscribed. Rob has a website.com/scripted for all your scripted TV needs.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us here today. And we will see all of you next time.
Bye.